Hey, what's up, everybody? Time for another game theory video. Remember, if you like the videos, like, sub, silly, comment, share, support the channel if you want. I appreciate it. Thanks. A quick one today. As quick as I can make it, I guess. But and a couple of things to touch upon after I show this. But I want you to watch this for a second. And they go on to talk about that for the rest of it. And this is like a longer version. And I can link to this set if you want. It's like 40 minutes long. You know, I always say it's amazing to me that I can still watch Super Turbo. And the nerd in me still feels a little bit of love, right? And I don't want to romanticize it too much, but it really is amazing to me how well that like Super Turbo has held up. Even I think Super Turbo is Super Turbo 30 years old now, right? Super Turbo came out in 94, I think, right? And what I hope that you could see there is I think it's a great example of how not every character has the same win condition, right? That's why I say, I've made so many, I've made so many fucking game theory videos about game design. And I try to describe things in different ways to hopefully make it click in your head, right? So many of these games are just designed so poorly and with so clear biasness. And in this little example of Guile punishing Ryu's Dragon Punch with a backbreaker throw, I don't know what the real name for it. I'm going to call it backbreaker throw. And that's his most damaging option in that exact situation, right? And do you kind of like see the beauty of like the archaicness of Super Turbo almost? Not every character has the same win condition. If this was a new school game, you might be like, oh, well, the best thing right there would have been for Guile to do his super. But you're like, oh, wait, well, maybe Guile's super actually isn't just combo fodder. Maybe it's not good in that specific situation. Oh, well, if it's a new game, maybe a character would just do a drive rush combo. Everybody would drive rush, oh, their version of a drive rush. Oh, it's a custom combo. Everyone has the same accessibility to the best move in the game. In custom combos, do everything, right? Super Turbo isn't a game like that. Even as archaic as Super Turbo is, you have such like complexity in this archaicness, right? It just is, it's amazing to me that I can watch Super Turbo 30 years later and I'm like, wow, Super Turbo still is a fun game to watch. Not every character has the same winning condition. You don't see all these homogenized mechanics, and because not everything is homogenized, not every character has the same win condition. Not every character has access to the best move in the game to try to balance it. You actually see this balance in the chaos, right? That's just such a clear example of like the beauty of a game like Super Turbo. And I do think when I think about video games, I think that Super Turbo holds up better than, say, something like, say, Accent Core. If we're comparing it to Guilty Gear, and I use Guilty Gear as an example because I do think Guilty Gear is a game that was made with a lot of goodwill. I do think Super Turbo holds up better than, say, Accent Core Plus R if we're thinking about, the end of the generation of the XX games. Not to say that I hate Accent Core Plus R, but I do think, like I said, Plus R starts to feel a little bit stale. They started to Mugen-fy moves, and you feel they're starting to run out of ideas. Although, granted, I think Justice and Cliff are great in Accent Core Plus R. And people are like, what? They're broken. They're so weird. Cliff can just kill you with one thing. And Justice is like a super polarizing character. Some matchups, he's super powerful. In other matchups, he's shit. Yeah, that's amazing. That's awesome, I think. Not every character should have the same tools. It's fucking great. But Super Turbo I think just holds up a little bit better because Accent Core, it starts to feel a little bit stale. Feels like they're running out of moves. And then by the time that you got the Plus R, as I've said before, Plus R is just, I just don't really care about Plus R. I don't think it's that amazing of a game, honestly. But Super Turbo, you can see the progression of fighting games is still happening in Super Turbo. And it's got a great narrative. I've talked about, watch all those videos of just, the narrative for not only the player, but the audience and how you teach somebody a game. And Super Turbo, like I said, you can feel the progression of it. Not that I like everything about Super Turbo. I do think there's brain farts, but Super Turbo just holds up so well. And I think it's another example that I talked about in a recent video of I don't know if people actually like fighting games anymore. Like, do you really love fighting games? And again, I'm not trying to like romanticize it or make it too like cheesy, but when you see interviews like those 2XKO interviews, and that's not to say that I necessarily think the 2XKO game will be a terrible game. I mean, I don't know. I just am not impressed with, 6 characters in 5 years. And you have them saying like they almost don't know what's fun themselves. And you're like, oh, well, we don't have a zoner character yet. Maybe we think this isn't going to be fun, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, you feel this biasness of how people create games now. Even Street Fighter V was designed by a former player, if I'm correct. Xrd was designed by a former player, right? And I think that is inevitable because, of course, the same people making Street Fighter 2, I don't think are making games anymore. And if you think that Street Fighter 2 is the originator, there's no player to make Street Fighter 2 yet. Because it's like, unexplored territory. Everything's brand new, right? You're starting off on a clean slate. But nowadays, when you see people, they make video games and you are bringing in former players that have a clear biasness towards one strategy or towards one play style that they like. And it just goes to show one of the reasons why games are so bad now, poorly designed, right? Because you have, and like I've said before, Street Fighter 6 is like it's being designed by a robot or something. They can only see one perspective of how a game should be made, right? Back in Street Fighter 2, and I do think Street Fighter 2 is perhaps, there's some, serendipitousness to the game and how it turned out. But there's like a collection of ideas, right? There's a collection of ideas of what a fighting game could be, right? And some people like one play style over the other. And when you watch these old games, you can still feel that like you don't have to play a certain way to enjoy the game, right? Do you get what I'm getting at? And again, I know that it's inevitable that now players are creating the games, but I think there's a clear biasness. And video games, I just don't think the people that even talk about video games really care about them in the same way. They only maybe care about winning. And that's kind of sad, right? And I know that fighting games are a competitive endeavor and there must be somebody that wins. And that's why there's so much hate in the community as well, right? It's one of the best and the worst things about games, fighting games, that you can be the winner and you can be the loser. And that's why there's hate. And that's why the people like them, but as well. But they shouldn't have these people with such biased views on fighting games, right? And again, that's one of the reasons why I've been able to predict games more than anybody else, because I just enjoy the idea of fighting games, right? Although there are clear-cut characters that I enjoy playing myself, I can appreciate still the characters that I don't like. I can still appreciate that, even though I don't want to play it, right? And I think that's the difference, right? Fighting games are just, it's sad. It's sad that I can look at fucking Super Turbo and still be more impressed with watching Super Turbo matches than any new school game. And to finish off on a couple thoughts, speaking of old school stuff, actually, just in case you care, Mike Watson, he did message me recently and he's like, yeah, actually got together. I messaged him or talked to James, whatever. And he's like, I asked him, he's like, why are, well, I don't, however he phrased it, right? I wasn't there at the conversation, he just texted me. And he's like, yeah, I asked James what his deal is with you and, why he's been so shady with you, why he acted like that. And I guess James said that he doesn't remember why you're not allowed to talk about me on any stream anymore. I literally messaged him again. I'm like, what do you mean he doesn't remember why you're not allowed to talk about me? Like, is that one of the most ridiculous ways of admitting that there is something extremely shady about the community going on? Oh, yeah, James, 1 minute, yeah, you're the one of the most important people ever in fighting games. And I know that you were dying. I'm so glad that you're alive, and I'll spread your story. And I know all the people that lied about you, blah, blah, blah. Which even then, it sounded weird because he gave that excuse of like, oh, I just didn't know you wanted anybody to talk about that you've done more than anyone in fighting games. And that we've all taken credit for so much of the stuff that you've done. And then we lied about you. And I'm like, yeah, James, it'd be kind of nice if you called out these people. Oh, I didn't know you wanted me to call out the people. What does he do? Goes on stream right after that. Totally fine with people lying about me. And then he threw a little bitch fit, like a little man baby child. Well, why do I have to say anything about you? Why do I have to defend you? Why can't I just let everybody lie about you? And so I guess Mike said he just got together and talked to James recently. And James apparently doesn't remember why it's been said you can't talk about me on stream. He just apparently follows the rules because he doesn't want to rock the boat, apparently. Just following orders. Does that seem very creepy and strange to you? And he basically said, don't worry about it. He's just jealous that you've done more than him and all the real ones know how good you are at games, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, Mike, I don't think they do because the community is trying to hide it. Right? I'm pretty sure the community is trying to hide it. No, not everyone knows everything that I've done in games because they don't want anyone to know about it. But anyway. And then he said he was talking about he might do a podcast, which I think he should because I think Mike Watson is, like I said before, he doesn't get the same kind of, accolades, or he doesn't get the same kind of love, I feel like, in the community that he deserves. If you consider, comparing to old school players like Vi and Choi, I feel like they talk about them more than they do Watson. But, to me, a kid that actually grew up playing Street Fighter 2, they're like Mike Watson is synonymous with Street Fighter 2 to me. So I think he doesn't get enough credit, and I think he should do a podcast. And he was like, yeah, if I do a podcast, I'll have you on, so don't worry about it. But I don't know. I just thought that was creepy that, he messaged me and he said, James Chen doesn't remember why you're not allowed to talk about me. Okay. Well, is that even a real excuse? I don't believe that. And then finally, before I go, I did recently finally start TRT, so I'm probably going to start updating my channel more with that. So this is what I'm working with right now. This is the dad bod. Took my first TRT shot today. I don't know if you could see it, but we're going to see if I get any more buff. But like I said, I feel like I've never really been super concerned with getting more buff or more ripped. I've always just thought like if I could gain like 5 pounds of like upper body stuff, that would be pretty cool. Maybe an Instagram buff, but more so than that, I'm really just hoping that it helps with the fatigue because I'm just so fucking tired, especially, long COVID was just the nail in the coffin in terms of fatigue, and hopefully it fixes like the bipolar sex drive. I'm really hoping it changes quality of life because I'm just so sick all the time, but I just got to do something. So I just finally woke up today and I've had the prescription and all the stuff for so long. And I'm like, I'm just going to start. Got to pray I don't get pimples all over. Hopefully my hair, because my hair has been pretty fucking thick, actually. It's finally growing back after getting COVID the second time, but hopefully I don't lose my hair. Hopefully I don't have some kind of weird side effects. Hopefully I don't get bloated. I do know, if you're curious, so I'm just going to start off slow. My prescription is for 200, but I'm only going to take 100 to start off with because, I just don't want to take that much. But unfortunately, I do know because I have high sex hormone binding goblin, I'm kind of prone to being the one kind of person that needs to take more for TRT, which scares me. But I'm going to, at least while I start off, I'm going to try to do a regular kind of lower dose. But anyway, we'll see. Yeah, remember if you like the videos, like, sub, silly, comment, share, support the channel if you want. Appreciate it. Thanks. I'll probably be updating more fitness stuff in the future, assuming I feel some changes or something. The end.